Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Stephenson. Hang tight. We're just getting organized. Hi. We're just figuring out some of the technology and who's here and who isn't. So feel free to chat. You're all being very patient. We will get underway.
Hi everyone, my name is Sahil. I am a student in the Electromechanical Engineering program and I'm a virtual connector here at Sheridan. Welcome to Leading with Emotional Intelligence with Lori Stephenson. First, a couple of housekeeping points about how this session will work. Because sessions are smaller and they give us the chance to interact more with each other and the speaker. You can turn on your mic and the camera for the duration of the session. To do that, click on the Share Audio and Video button on the top left corner. The moderator for the session will then approve you. There's a limit of how many people can come on screen at one time, but we will rotate through the attendees so everyone who would like to come on camera will get to. As a reminder, the breakout sessions are being recorded, and please know that if you want to access the closed captioning in the chat, you can always type your questions into the chat button too. And we have someone working behind the scenes who will be checking on them and reading them out at the end of the talk. Now to our great speaker, Lori Stephenson. Lori is the co-founder of My Big Sky, a coaching business focused on helping students transition successfully from high school to post-secondary education and their careers. As a keynote speaker, she wants everyone to live their most effective lives, and she focuses on emotional intelligence. She holds a certificate in adult education from Sheridan, as well as a certificate in public relations from Humber and a BA from Western University. Please welcome Lori.
Thank you, Sahib. I apologize. Hi, everybody. It's delightful to be with you this afternoon. it was a real honor to be invited to participate. And I'm looking forward to not me just chatting at you, but some interaction. So there's chat, but you are encouraged to turn on your camera. I know we all get a little fatigued by the cameras these days, but it is nice to see some smiling faces. So I'm going to share my screen. I do have a few slides. Oh, yay, thank you, folks who are doing so. Yay, welcome. I do have a few slides to sort of focus us on this emotional intelligence topic. It is a big one. So in our time today, we aren't going to completely understand how we can ultimately be more emotionally intelligent, but we can understand a few factors that help us. And we can also understand a little bit of how that really sets us up for success in our lives, professionally and personally. So let me see if I can share my screen and my slides. I did test, but that doesn't mean anything. As you well know, technology doesn't always. Is that a thumbs up? Sahib, you can see all those? Can you? Oh, yay, thanks. I have never, folks, used the thumbs up signal so much as I have in this past year. Okay. So before we dive into the specific emotional intelligence content, I will share a little bit about who I am. Let me see if I can make that work. Why doesn't it want? There we go. All right. Figuring out whether it likes a mouse or an arrow. So let me tell you a little bit about me. And Sahib, you were very kind to give a little bit of that bio. So we'll start up in the top green box. Now, it's been a long time since I was at school, but I did get that undergrad in history. I picked history because I like history, okay? And that was a great starting point. I then went into that place of public relations, and from there got my first real job. I started working for CIBC as a corporate communications person. So I was passionate about communication. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And if we go over to the red circle, I switched then. Part of what you're going to learn is that you're ultimately responsible for managing your career. Nobody really teaches us it. Nobody tells us that, but we are. So after about 4.5 years with CIBC, I was like, I liked it. It was good. I learned a ton. But I was ready for something new. I was ready to stretch, ready to grow. So I applied and was hired by Andersen Consulting, which is a global consulting firm, which ultimately became Accenture. It might be a name you know of. It might be one you become aware of. Global consulting company. Started out as a communications person. Through the experience and opportunity, I morphed into sort of an ops person and then into global HR. So I was there almost 10 years, got to do fun projects, worked with travel, worked with exciting people, knowledgeable people, and I kept learning and growing. And then after about 10 years there, I decided it was time to do something else. And I hopped over into that purple circle where I launched my own stuff. I decided I'd liked the corporate experience, but I was ready to do something more independent. And so I started my first consulting business, which is really the coaching and facilitation business, sort of like the work I'm doing here. And I show up in lots of different environments for that. And that was called Pivotal Learning. But once I started, I thought I need a few other things to help me be successful in this environment. So I got certified in the emotional intelligence assessment. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'll tell you why I picked that. And then I launched, I went to Sheridan. I decided if I'm going to work in this space of adult learning and adult education, I need more credentials and I want the knowledge and the understanding. So Sheridan, perfect opportunity. And I took the adult education certification program and that was phenomenal. And I learned a ton and it really just solidified my understanding and my skills so that, now that we're facilitating virtually, lots are coming, those skills are coming into to active use. After that, I launched my Big Sky. And My Big Sky is a coaching business that is focused on helping students, right? Figure out those post-secondary choices and then those longer term career options. And the reason I did this is I spent a lot of time helping adults who are unhappy in their career try to figure out what they might like to do and what they might like to do next. So that brings me here. Every year is different. And that's one thing, I know we're here to talk about emotional intelligence, but one of the things I really want you to also be aware of is you're going to manage your career. You're going to keep growing. You're going to keep saying yes to things. And so how can you do that and feel really confident about it? And your emotional intelligence can help you do so. So that's just a little bit about me. If you've got specific questions, you can always ask in the chat, or you can raise your hand. We will do questions at the end. But you came here, I think, to talk a little bit more about what is emotional intelligence and how can it be useful to you. So I don't know if we have a raise hand feature or not, but if you're in chat, if you can just give me an indicator, maybe through chat, have you even heard of emotional intelligence? Is this a concept that is known to you? I see a yes, thank you. I see a yes, 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 yes. Ah, that is exciting. Oh, and a not really. Thank you very much. Oh, and it's your favorite. Thank you, Steve. Kind of. Beautiful. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to connect the dots with some history in a few minutes. But I thought I'd lead with this particular quote because we are so focused on our education. And our education is essential, right? We want our skills. We want our capabilities. We want, that knowledge piece. But ultimately, what the research will tell you is that once we leave school and we've got our credentials and you've framed your degree and it's hanging on the wall and you're like, or your diploma or your certificate or whatever it is you're working toward, and you're like, yay me. Then we venture out. And while our skills and our knowledge help us be successful in our roles, it is ultimately how we communicate and how we connect and how we show up in a consistent level, managed way that helps us be ultimately more effective in our world. So this quote by Travis Bradbury, and he's one of many researchers who spends a lot of time in EQ. It is based on research. It is the biggest predictor of performance in the workplace and the strongest driver of leadership and personal excellence. And so I know we called this leading with emotional intelligence. And we all strive to be leaders. And I'm going to say we're already leaders. We are leading every single day. So I don't want us to be thinking about leadership as a title or as a role or as authority. I want to think of us every single day, the model that we are showcasing to others. How are we behaving in alignment with values? Are we being consistent? Are we being measured? Are we being open? All of those are key factors that ultimately help how people experience us. Early on in my career, one of my very favorite managers, once said to me, I can train you up in skills. I can't easily change people's attitudes. I can't easily change behaviors. Okay? And so when we think of that, how can we then as individuals, as we embark on whatever the next step is for you, how do we show up, right? Willing, open, flexible, willing to adjust. And it's all linked back, folks, to our level of emotional intelligence. And I see some chat going in here, and that makes me happy. And I love to know the philosophy at Sheridan. Yeah, leadership is action, not position. So that's why we don't have to wait, right? We're not waiting till I get the corner office, even if that even is a thing anymore, okay? So let me move forward. And I realize as I'm sharing my screen, I'm sharing it on a different monitor. So you're seeing the backdrop. So sorry, folks, older generation, not particularly effective, but it's showing. So we're just going to stick with it if that's okay. Okay, perfect. I appreciate your flexibility. So what do emotions affect? More than you may realize. So starting with the piece of the pie that's pulled out, and then we're going to go clockwise. Emotions drive how we feel about ourselves and whether or not we'll say yes to a big challenge, and whether we've got that negative self-talk that's going, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can do it. Okay, it will drive, our emotions will drive the goals that we set for ourselves and that sense of accomplishment that we feel and the meaning that we've got to create. It will affect how we express ourselves. So can I use my emotions to confidently communicate, to stand up for myself and to think independently? Or am I caught in the stream of other thought and influence? Down to the green. Emotions, they completely connect and ultimately help us drive and build those meaningful relationships. Okay? That could be one-on-one, could be larger group, We're not talking introversion, extroversion here. We are just talking about the way in which we create connection with people, and how do we empathize? And do we feel a calling and a commitment to something more than ourselves? Sort of that social responsibility piece. Up to the how we make decisions. I know we think we're very rational beings. At the root of every single decision are our emotions. And if we aren't conscious of how those emotions are affecting how we think about something, how we see something, then we may end up making decisions that may be a little rash or a little short-sighted or based in something that isn't actually true. Okay? So, that consciousness is important. Then the last piece is emotions ultimately help us deal with the stress. Resilience is many skill sets pulled together, but at the root is our ability to deal with our emotions. Because emotions can really foster that sense of inner strength, that resilience. Like, think of this past year, and it is a year. It is almost a year. We have been living this COVID experience. And so yay for all of us. And I know from what I observe and how I interact with people that we are hitting a bit of a wall. Everybody's tired. This is old now. Okay. And you've watched some really move through this a little bit more with more ease, I'll say. And you've watched some struggle a little bit more. And some of that, folks, can be linked back ultimately to how our emotions either support us or get in the way. So, how does it work? Now, I've already told you I'm a history major, so I am not a scientist, but I can tell you a little bit about how the brain works. Okay. So you can see the arrow, and you can see on the right where the information comes in. Okay, in our primitive brain, which is called the amygdala, right? We get that hit, that fight or flight response. We get triggered. Okay? But ultimately, the information moves through and it goes into sort of the limbic system of the brain, which is what we call our emotional brain. And what's really interesting is that is where all emotion lives. It is also where all decisions live. And it has no capacity for data. It has only the capacity for emotion. Okay. And ultimately that gut feel, that, when you're deciding something and you got all the data in front of you and saying something still doesn't feel right, well, that's the limbic system speaking. Then up at the top, the rational brain, okay, the neocortex, our newer brain. This is where all logic lives and all data lives, okay, fabulous. The reality is sometimes in life and in work, you're going to hear things like, oh, this is business, this is professional, leave your emotions at the door. Well, if you hear that, what you're ultimately doing is leaving a portion of your brain out of the equation. What we need is a balance. We need the rational data piece and we need the emotional piece. And you're going to hear me say that emotions are just data. Okay? And for all those who love numbers, you're going to say, oh, okay, I can translate that. Okay, all right, emotions are data. They tell you something. If we try to jump over the emotions and just get to the rational, you're going to miss stuff. And if you get stuck in the limbic system spinning with the emotion and can't move up to the rational, then you're going to be ineffective because you're going to be anxious. So we want both. You need them. I just want you to recognize, and this is relatively recent research, okay, that it's the emotions and our feelings are at the root of our thoughts and our actions. Originally, way back, they used to think, oh, we had a thought and then we attributed an emotion or a feeling to it. And then the reverse is true. The emotion hits first, and we can see it now that we know how the brain works better. You feel it, and then you think about something that reaffirms it or it connects to it, and then we take action on it. The whole purpose is to be so conscious and aware of what your emotions are triggering within you so that you aren't reacting, but you're being much more conscious, thoughtful, and aware with the steps that you take. So with that, I'm going to keep moving. I know there's some questions coming up, but I can see, Laura's acknowledging that we will get to them at the end. So I couldn't resist, had to put in a fun picture. There are so many descriptions and official definitions of what emotional intelligence is. It is essentially being smarter with our feelings, recognizing for what they are, valuing them for the fact that they're telling us something, and then learning how to work with them. Okay? Now, we didn't always know this. So when I asked you up front, like, have you heard of it? Have you heard of it? I'm delighted that so many are going, yeah, it's something I'm really familiar with, or I've heard of it. That's great, because frankly, folks, we've only been measuring it since 1997. Okay? And it's really only was coined as a whole area of study in the mid 80s. And then it got popularized in the mid 90s. And I'm saying the 1980s, 1990s, okay? Not the century before. But here's some fun facts. So what prompted this research by a team of psychologists was the fact that they were watching some really odd behavior of some very high profile politicians in the US in the 1980s. And they are kind of going, what is happening? This person is really smart, very, very smart. But their life has derailed. They've made really questionable choices. They haven't thought things through. They're derailing a little bit, and yet they're so smart, right? This is the IQ piece, right? The brains, okay? But their emotional intelligence not well developed. And so it got everybody in the psychology world, not everybody, a number of them, really curious, going, what is happening? We need to understand what is happening. And that is when the research began. And that, by the mid-90s, it was named as emotional intelligence. It was taken, the research was taken further by a name, maybe you know him, Daniel Goleman, who popularized it, produced a book called Why EQ Can Matter More Than IQ. And that just opened the gates. Now we see EQ tied to leadership development. We see it tied to in the academic world. We see it modeled in grade schools and elementary schools as we're teaching children to be more emotionally aware in some spaces. It's driving all sorts of things. And as I said, it wasn't until the late 90s that we could measure it. And don't we love to measure stuff? Doesn't it suddenly become so much more meaningful if I can put a number to it? Okay. And so I said I'd connect a dot for you. When I went out on my own, right, I left the corporate environment and I thought, what is going to be most helpful to me as I start to navigate this space? And what are the trends that I tend to see as I work with leaders developing? And it's not the skills, it's the emotional piece. And so I got certified in the EQI, which is a tool, it's a Canadian tool, internationally well recognized, but ultimately it measures our current level of EI capabilities. And the beautiful thing is, unlike IQ, which is really hard to change, we can develop, we can get better. Because this is behavioral. This is about understanding what happens when our emotions get triggered, and can I ultimately be smarter with that information? Okay, so we're gonna play a little game. It'd be lots of fun if we were in the same room together, so it'll be somewhat, okay? We're gonna start with awareness. Because with emotional intelligence, you gotta be able to see it, you gotta be able to name it, okay? So I'm gonna put a slide up, and on that slide are a series of emotions. You can see the columns. We've got sad on the left, and then you can see what I'll call synonyms for sad, other varying degrees of sadness like hurt, distressed, and moody, angry, betrayed, upset, and irritated, afraid, panicky, insecure, cautious, and ashamed, mortified, guilty, and uncomfortable. Here's your challenge. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I would like you to pick one of the columns and one of the emotions. Have you picked one? Okay. Now I want you to think about a time you felt it. Go to that memory. Maybe it was today. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was 5 years ago. Doesn't matter when. I want you to go back and tap into that memory and what it was that made you feel that way. All right, I'm hoping you're there. Now I want you to notice, I want you to sort of turn your attention to your body and your state. What is happening for you? What do you notice within yourself that happens when you recall that memory and that emotion? Put it in chat for me or unmute. Tell me, what's happening, if anything? What do you notice? What did you pick? Who wants to share? Got anybody? Thank you. You're feeling that emotion again. Yeah. What's it do to your body? Can I ask? Do you notice? Like, how do you know you're feeling that emotion again? Like, is there a swirling sort of sense of anxiousness in the pit of your stomach? Are you kind of like, is the breathing changing? Your heart is racing. Thank you. Makes you feel kind of anxious. As it promised, I will not leave you there. Okay, but sad emotion, yeah, sweaty palms, blood rushing to cheeks. Thank you. Yeah, especially if you're like, I was angry. They betrayed me, right? And you're going, and you can feel it, and it's back as if it just happened. Look at the power, folks. Look at the power of how quickly that happens. And that is what it is. So you didn't just experience it. You're pulling it back up. That is the power of our thoughts and our emotions. Okay, I see everybody. You're stressed again. I promise I will not leave you there. Okay, I promise you I will not leave you there. But I want you to start to notice it. Because in life, we can get caught up in the busyness. We can get busy doing, and we don't notice the slight shifts in our moods. We don't notice that the fact that somebody cut me off on the highway has now put me into a bit of a cranky mood, okay? Or that somebody responded to a text of mine with a little bit of a, curt response and some weird emoji, and now I'm distressed, or now I'm upset, or now I'm worried, okay? These things happen like that. We have approximately 40,000 thoughts a day, so they're going like wildfire. It's hard to know. But the more emotionally aware you can be, the more in control you're going to be of what you do with that. Okay? But I just want you to notice how fast it was. Okay? I remember I have two daughters. One's in university at the moment, the other just graduated. Varying stages of their educational journey. And I remember when they were much smaller, and I just picked them up from some event, and we got into the car, and I'm driving home, and you can just kind of feel like the energy, like people are bristling, nobody's saying anything, but you can just tell something's not right. We got into the house, and it was like somebody removed, took the cork out of the bottle, and it all exploded, and suddenly there's, don't push me, and move your stuff, and don't tell me. And I said, okay, girls, out out to the front porch. And they're like, oh, Mom, what? And I said, clearly we have all had challenging days, because nothing happened in the car. So whatever we've been carrying just unloaded here. But here's what I know is you didn't cause mine, and I didn't cause yours. And yet we're taking it out on each other. And I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in that for the evening. So can we leave our stuff out here? If you want to talk about it later, we can talk about it later. But let's leave it outside right now and go in and have dinner and just have a pleasant evening. Are you in? And they're like, yeah. I said, leave it out here. Nobody's going to take it. Nobody wants it. And if you want to pick that load up again tomorrow when you go back to school, you absolutely can. Your choice. So we went in and we had that calm evening, and then people could talk about their day in a much more balanced way without us taking out the frustration. Why I'm pulling this out, folks, is this is at the root. If we can't name our emotion and we can't see what impact it's having on our behaviors, we won't be as effective at managing it. And that's where it all begins. So you played that game for me. Now I'd like you, if I can make this work. Told you I wouldn't leave you stressed, sad, depressed, anxious. We are going happy. Okay. From the column on the left, think of a time. Pick one of them where you felt grateful. or just joyful, or yeah, pretty content. Life's all right. Or cheerful. Pick one. Think at the time. Connect to it. Feel it. Let it infuse. You got it? Are you with me? Is it better? It's that fast. Guess who's in charge of your thoughts? Guess, I'm not saying diminish the emotion or ignore the emotion, but it doesn't have to run us, not blindly. We want to note so that we can figure out what action best supports us. Okay, tell me how you're feeling now. Put in the chat, where are we? Have we moved a little bit? Are we back to steady? Okay, I'm going to keep us moving ahead. So I'm back to some of the data, especially tied to careers and work and leadership. 75% of careers are derailed because of the inattention to those emotional competencies. It's that inability to handle interpersonal problems. It's that unsatisfactory team leadership during times where it's difficult or conflict. Inability to adapt to change. We're fixed, we're stuck. And missing trust. I just can't invest. So it matters. And the more that we can consciously choose and develop these capabilities. Now, I work with students all the time. I do a lot of work with high school students as they're transitioning to their post-secondary, because think back to your early days, how stressful it was, to leave home for the first time, to act as independent adults, to have a different level of academic requirement than maybe what you used to in high school. There were some stressors. It was exciting. I remember too, but there's some stress that comes with it. And the more that we can use those capabilities. Okay. So one of my favorite authors in this whole emotional space is Susan David. She's a professor at Harvard. And one of her quotes that I love is, emotions are data, not directives. So they're data. They're more proof. Okay. They tell you something. If they're happy and joyful, like things are aligned and working for you. And if it's stressful and worry, what it's saying is something is off. Okay. So we want to notice. We want to name them. That's why I had to pick a couple. Can you name emotion in yourself? And if so, can you then take it, trigger it, tie it back to what created it? We're going to do another exercise on that in just a minute. Okay, so if we know that they're data, they're not directives. Now that is very small, and I have no idea how to make it bigger. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, folks, she can be taught. Hold, please. I got to get down here on this. Okay, that's a little better. Sorry it took me so long to get there. So I say, the joys of working with the older generation and technology. Emotional intelligence isn't just one thing. It's actually 15 skills. It's 15 distinct skills. So people say, oh, you need to be more emotionally intelligent. And I'm going to say, yes. And there's 15 things that can help you be that. So remember, I talked at the very beginning, that self-awareness piece, that, do your emotions make you feel confident, or do they diminish you? When somebody gives you a compliment, here's a way to test self-regard right now. Somebody says, oh, and Sahib, I hope you're okay. I'm just going to use your name. I'm going to say, Sahib, that was an excellent presentation. I loved how you used the data and the storyline to really make the case clear. And let's say the response is, thank you, lovely. But sometimes it's, oh, thanks, I didn't do this piece, and I missed that, and I didn't know, and this isn't Sahib, I'm just using the example. But if that sounds like you folks, where you're quick to dismiss what people notice in you, might mean you sometimes are hard on yourself and your emotions pull you down. Okay? Self-regard. You got to be on your own side in life. Okay? You just do. There's going to be enough that are going to be pushing against us. You might as well, in balance though. Okay? So we've got self-regard, self-actualization, emotional self-awareness. We've got emotional expression, assertiveness, and independence. Can I decide for me what is best for me and not defer to others? Can I build connection with people? Can I use my strong emotional awareness to make better decisions? And can I manage my stress by being more flexible, being more optimistic? So I'm not going to dive into all of 15. We just don't have the time and capacity, but I wanted you to at least know. Okay. Sorry, I just noticing the sound go. Can everybody else hear me? I know that there's some sound issues. Okay, fine. Thank you. I hope that gets fixed. Okay. I wanted you to know that when we can distill it down into specific skills, you might be great on empathy. You might be really strong in empathy and really connect with people nicely, but you may have a very low impulse control, which means you're quick to act and you're quick to make decisions and you're rash. Or maybe you struggle with optimism and it's hard to be hopeful. When I work with individuals on this and we measure it and we look at it, what we find is, you've got some well-developed strengths, but you also have some areas that could improve. And ultimately, behind all of this, it's less about things being at a high score and more about things working together well. So we want all these 15 things to complement each other so that remember the brain, I'm not caught in the limbic system and I'm not ignoring the limbic system. I am using it all effectively. So that's wow. Okay, there's a lot of specificity we could dig into. In our time, we don't have as much to get into all of them, but we've touched one of them already, which was emotional self-awareness. I asked you to pick an emotion, feel it, and see the result within you. Okay, and how quickly you could change, how quickly you could modify from stress to joy. Okay, now I want you to think of a time I promise I won't leave you here again either, but I want you to think of a time you got really upset. Somebody did something happened, and again, you're just doing this for yourself, but what was the situation? And specifically, what was so upsetting about it? Did they leave you out? Did they steal your idea? Did they hurt your feelings? Okay. I don't know. Can you name the emotions? What emotions did you feel? And I'm going to tell you, folks, as human beings, we are quite limited. We're either happy, angry, or sad. But the research would say there's at least 27, okay? At least 27 distinct emotions. And I think there's more than that. But we're not very good with naming them. So I really want you to learn to name it. Are you frustrated or are you irritated? Because they're different. Are you happy? Or are you calm and content? They're different, okay? But now I want you to think back to that time you were really triggered and you were angry or frustrated or whatever. How did you react? What did you do? Did you text somebody back immediately? Did you hit send on an email? Did you cut off the conversation and walk away? Did you, I don't know, did you go somewhere and cry? No judgment. I just want to know what you did. And I'm not asking you to share. I want you to know what you did. But as a result of your actions, did you get what you wanted? Did things get better? Did things improve? Or was it a reaction? Was it an in-the-moment reaction? And so part of emotional intelligence is that ability to manage those impulses, to not walk away, to not yell, to not, react quickly without thought and without consideration. Okay? Think about where road rage comes from, folks. Road rage is lack of impulse control because somebody's angry, probably not at all to do with the car, but more about whatever else they're carrying around in their life, but it's targeted in the wrong way and to the wrong individual. Okay? We need to be responsible for the impact that we're having. If we are highly reactive and we have a strong emotional response to something, then I liken it to a bit of a tidal wave, where it just overwhelms the audience. It overwhelms whoever might be there, and it's too much. Okay? So part of the opportunity is, what could you do differently? And that's where pausing comes in. So impulse control of the 15 skills is the most important one, because it stops you from doing something rash. It stops you from doing something rash. Here's a tip. I bet some of you here have played sports at some point. You're looking at the least sporty person ever, okay? But there's a little technique. I'm going to call it 24 by 3, and I'm going to link it back to sports in a second. So 24 by 3. Here's your challenge, is when next time you get triggered, a text comes in and your desire is to just send one back. Or somebody says something to you and your desire is to engage, you're going to pause. You're going to put the phone down. You're going to walk away from a keyboard. You are going to get up and you are going to distract yourself for 24 seconds. You're going to go do something else. Okay. Have a drink of water. Okay. Look out the window. Okay. And then I want you to build it to 24 minutes. Go for a walk. Go have a snack. Go talk to a good friend. Watch something. Play a game. Do something else. See how you're feeling, right? Check in on that emotional self-awareness. If you're still feeling triggered, and provided things aren't urgent, can you wait 24 hours before you do anything? Can you give yourself that space? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes we're having bad days. And something that bugs us today, in the light of a new day when we've slept and we feel better and some of our assignments are in and the exam is over and all these things are done, I don't know why I was so upset about that. Really wish I hadn't, right? Like, when have you had that regret? So if you can practice 24 by 3, 24 seconds, 24 minutes, 24 hours. Now, the reason I brought up sports is if you've ever been part of a team, sometimes there's this coach rule where coaches put in place, they won't talk to parents for 24 hours after a game or after some sort of practice because everybody's emotions are heightened. And in 24 hours, we can all be more reasonable. Okay, so beautiful. We're going to practice naming our emotions, noticing them, and then connect them to the trigger. Give us some space, and then what is the most effective action I can take, right? That aligns with my values, right? What is the action that allows me to live most true to who I am? All right, so let me see. Here are some other actions you can take tied to emotional intelligence. We can all learn to be better listeners. Listening is at the root of empathy. It's also at the root of conflict resolution, because we cannot get to a point of real conversation and understanding if we aren't listening. If your impulse control is low, it's hard to listen. So there's a good 24. Practice the 24 by 3. Be open to feedback, folks. The good and the constructive. We do not grow from the good stuff at all. We only grow from the stuff that points out gaps. Okay, so it's nice to be validated. Be open to receiving feedback, considering it. Okay? Another big way to help bolster emotional intelligence is to make sure that as you make decisions in your life or that affect a team member or that may affect a team if you're leading a team, is make sure that you explain your decisions. You don't just make them. You connect the dots for people. You help them understand your thinking and the motivators and the actions behind and the reasons behind it. And then you're going to respond. You're just going to learn to build that space in. And Viktor Frankl, who was in the concentration camp, in the death camps in World War II, Nazi Germany, he survived them. And he went on to write one of the best books out there, in my opinion, which is Man's Search for Meaning. And he wrote, even when all choice has been removed and taken from you, you still have the opportunity to choose your attitude. And in the space, right, between stimulus and action, there is that room to have a more thoughtful response. So these are quick little tips, quick little actions, just to start to pay attention to build your emotional capabilities. So where are we at? Your journey, you're at the beginning. Like, I know you think, oh, I kind of threw it. Well, you're not. You are in the early stages of your journey, and it is exciting. When it comes time and you're looking for opportunities and you're looking for jobs and you're looking for roles. And sometimes what I hear from students is, oh, I'm waiting for it's not quite right. Well, start somewhere, okay? Say yes a lot. Say yes, I'll try. Yes, okay. If people see potential in you, trust that they see something that maybe you can't see in yourself, and go see, go learn. I told you at the very beginning, I did some operations work. Not because I saw the potential, but one of my bosses said, Lori, I think I'd like to see you grow in this area. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what operations are. He said, I'll teach you. Say yes. Make sure you're contributing. Okay, so we don't just get rewards. We got to invest in it. So roll up your sleeves, contribute. And that's a real part of emotional intelligence, and being part of a team is social responsibility, is give back and invest. I've already said, take the feedback, but learn from it. Like, it's not enough to go, oh yeah, thanks, and move on. Okay, especially if it repeats. Like, if people keep telling you things, it's time to start to listen and adjust it. Okay, and the other is, we're never done. So I know there's stages that maybe we invest more in our learning and in our growth. But you can see from even my journey, like I went to Sheridan and graduated with my certificate in adult education in 2011. I can tell you it was a long time since I've been in school. And it was refreshing, and it was expanding, and it was motivating. And so while you're early in your journeys, lovely, exciting, just trust and know you're not done, right? And there's just opportunity to keep growing. Oh, yeah, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, I see that referenced, one of my favorites, one of my absolute favorites. And what Stephen Covey would say is, live life in crescendo, which is all about that whatever is coming next is even greater than what came before, right? We live a long time. It's about meaning and purpose and contribution. All right. Oh, I went too far. Some resources for you. I referenced the book by Susan David, Emotional Agility. Great book, but you can go onto her website and do a little self-assessment, and they'll send you a PDF report of sort of how you cope with your emotions. Different than the 15 skills I showed you, but all about being more emotionally capable. The EQ Edge is a book by Stephen Stein. He's the brain behind, or one of the brains behind the assessment tools that I like to use. Travis Bradbury wrote Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And then there are lots of intelligence assessments. There's coaching. You can go online and watch videos. This isn't a topic that's going to go away. And you're going to probably see it as you venture more further into your career. Organizations talk about it a lot, and they measure it a lot, because it's about impact and it's about longer term success and effectiveness. So why don't we see if there's any questions at this point? What have we got? And do they unmute, or does somebody tell me? Okay, there's one. Does EQ, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, there's one question from Elizabeth. They asked that, does EQ align with the Big Five ocean? I've learned that conscientiousness is the biggest predictor of performance. So would you say that EQ is tied with conscientiousness or different?
Oh, that's a great question. So with conscientiousness, and I'm not sure exactly how it's being defined in that particular model, but it absolutely would have a link to it. There would be aspects of our empathy, the social responsibility pieces, and interpersonal skills that would tie to a level of conscientiousness. If the Big Five is referencing the psychology traits, what we want to know is, when we measure personality, right? When we're measuring personality, that is different than EQ. Okay, personality is largely set as well. EQ is more dynamic. So this I think of as more behavioral. So if I thought of the skills that would align with conscientiousness, it would be the 3 that I mentioned. There may be others, but those are the 3 that jump to mind. I hope that answers it. Yeah. Are there any other questions, folks? I know, like I said, we could spend a lot of time talking emotional intelligence. So when I was thinking a little bit about this, it was, well, some key quick actions. Start to name and notice your emotions. managing your impulses, creating that space so you can think about what am I feeling and why, and how can I move more effectively to a positive outcome and a positive action. Oh, thank you. All students are attending school in a remote or hybrid format. How would you recommend that students demonstrate and develop their mode? Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, folks, self-care, like reach out, do not isolate. Okay. So I know it's not as much fun when you can't be physically together. Don't let that limitation stop you from doing anything. Okay. So this is all about a little bit about taking care of our stress tolerance and how emotions affect our ability to cope with stress. So there's two things I'd like you to think about. One is self-care. So get outside. Nature's awesome. Exercise, play with puppies, talk to friends, enjoy, like take care of yourself. But the other piece is problem solving.
Yes.
Right? We don't always have to put up with stress. It isn't just I just have to wait till COVID's over. Well, or could we do something differently? Could we modify the environment? Could we make a change to our schedule? And this is where your flexibility comes in. Are you so stuck that it has to be a certain way, or could you do it just a little bit differently? This has been a very challenging times. So I'm just going to see what else. Yeah, so I'd start with the stress tolerance piece. The other is I'd work on optimism. So one simple practice for optimism is gratitude. It's, identifying 3 things every single day that we're great. And it doesn't have to be, like I won the lottery. It could be, because if you did, yay, but it probably isn't going to be that. It could be, I had the best sandwich. Like it was really good and I didn't have to make it. Or I heard a funny joke. Or, I had a nice 15-minute conversation with somebody I haven't caught up with in a while. Like those are small little things to be grateful for.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are some of the things I would encourage. The last piece is, and this ties back to the beginning, is great leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. And it's not about the role. It's always about the goal. It's about the impact. It's about meaning. Right. And so one of the things that I see at all levels of leadership is everybody's waiting for the other person to show up and lead. Don't wait. Right. Don't wait for that. You're leading already. We can just do it more effectively if we get those emotions working with us.
Wow.
Not hidden and not overwhelmed. And that's it. So thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it. Sahib.
Thank you, Lori. Just last question. What is your favorite memory of taking on a leadership role? How do you think this influenced you moving forward?
Oh, what a great question. Okay. So in my volunteer world, I have, for 13 years, I was with the Distress Center in Halton. And I started as a phone line volunteer. And then the opportunity came up to participate in the board. And I went on as board chair. And it was overwhelming and it was unfamiliar. And I was a little scared and nervous. And I did it anyway. And what I learned in that challenge, was that I had more capability than I realized. And I didn't have to do it alone. There were people around who wanted to make me successful in that role, because not for me, but also for the organization. So I think the opportunity was to say yes to something that felt really a little bit out of reach and unfamiliar, and to ask for help and to trust yourself, right? And invest in it. So when I think of all the different leadership roles, that was a big pivotal moment for me when I went, oh yeah, I can do just a little bit more. Nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for participating, for coming here this afternoon. I know you had choices. And I wish you all good health and much success as you continue in studies and as you embark on your first steps into your career. So thanks, everybody. I'll just hang on until I'm told what to do. I will stop sharing, though.
It looks like our time is up, but thank you everyone for all your great questions. And thank you, Lori, for taking the time to be here today. I really enjoyed hearing more about, like how you break down the basic insights from rational to emotional brain, as well as learning how to address those emotions, which is very important to manage ourselves. In fact, Daniel Goleman is, it's like I have a book about emotional intelligence. It's my favorite. I'm reading right now and I'm learning about early childhood attunements between a mother and a child. So I really enjoyed this session. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. You're welcome, Sahib. And thanks, everybody. What a pleasure to be here with you. Lots of good energy. All right.
If you're looking to connect with Lori, she will be joining us at 3 p.m. as one of our Expo booth exhibitors, where you will have another chance to speak with her. We now have a break on the main stage. We have a performance from another RBCX music artist, Shanaz. She creates smooth R&B that combines classic elements of the 90s as well as trap. She's released 5 singles to date, including Your Eyes and Addicted. Shanaz is actively working on the writing and recording of her debut film, expected to be released this year. Some of you may know Shanaz, as she attended John Cabot Catholic Secondary School in Mississauga. Have a great break, everyone. And just before 2 p.m., please head over to the LinkedIn Guys session. To get there, click on the sessions on the left sidebar. See you then. Thank you.